Hello, sculptors. We're going to be talking about our next project here, which is the nature sculpture. So in this sculpture, your larger goal is to spend some time out in nature where you're learning about the colors, the shapes, the lines, all those elements of art that we'd learned about earlier in class, and trying to integrate the principles of design as well. So like balance, variety, unity, and you're going to want to go out in nature and try to find those things and create those things out of the nature materials that you see. So whether it be through the twigs, the leaves, uh, grass, anything green that you find, anything colorful, the big goal of the project is that you're going to be collecting those things. You're going to be putting them together into an arrangement of an artwork that you create that's totally your own, totally brand new, something that you haven't seen before. That it's also just a way for you to kind of get outside and realize that art can happen anywhere. It doesn't need to happen at home inside a room or in a classroom at school. So we're going to be focusing in on some artists that deal with this type of art making. And our first artist that we're going to learn about is Andy Goldsworthy. So on our Schoology page, you're going to see a link to a website that's a great overview just about Andy Goldsworthy. And on here, if we scroll down, you'll start to be able to see some examples of his work. And one of the common things that you're going to notice is that there's this theme going on in his work that has to do with kind of a flow, the ebbs and flows of a river. There's going to be a lot of different shapes that you continue to see over and over again, like this egg shape, the circle. All these lines kind of come together to form around that. Here's another great example. Even as these just kind of flip through here, you'll notice that everything is made out of completely from nature. And he'll kind of go to a certain area and start collecting items that he sees that are interesting. He may change them a little bit, like take the rocks and crack them, or earlier on you saw an icicle sculpture that he created. This is made out of woven leaves, and here's kind of another example of some leaves that have been kind of sliced and diced and put together again in an interesting way. But again, trying to find a cool way of making the environment that you make the sculpture relate to the sculpture itself. So here's putting leaves into a pool of water. That's a really bad image, but he'd found this kind of unique flower color that he'd fill this entire little knoll of water right next to a waterfall. So it's a stark color difference. So again, kind of taking these ideas, we don't have snow right now. Some trimesters may have snow when you take this class, and you could use snow or ice to put together your sculpture as well. But I think in a lot of ways, this artist does a lot with balance. So the principle of design of balance tries to have some symmetry, whether it be symmetrical or asymmetrical balance in the pieces, or even a physical balance. If you think about, how the sculpture stands up on its own and doesn't fall over, that's another common thing that you'll see in his work. So there's another link on our Schoology page here that are different clips that are videos that kind of show the artist making their art, or even, kind of the finished piece. It'll kind of be a video that kind of shows right through it. And I've got a video right here that I'll just play a brief little bit here for you. So this is a documentary that came out many years ago, but it kind of followed the artist along over this series of months to different artworks that they were making. So again, this is Andy Goldsworthy. Get this started here.
I've shook hands with the place. I've begun.
So here he's making that ice sculpture. Kind of got out before the sun came up. Started to put it together. Just using water and even just kind of the heat of his hands to try to put the ice together. The end result, though, very cool, because the sculpture was just right in the first light of the sun, and it lit up with that sunrise coming through the ice. You can see how it's just kind of a methodical process of just slowing down a little bit, taking time to like soak in what the materials kind of are meant to be used in. You know, like they're meant to be combined together, and you can kind of make this connection with, you know, even how the materials are kind of speaking to you in a way, telling you what they should be used for.
Before the sun had risen.
So check that out.
Extraordinary that I didn't expect, but I could only have dreamt of happening, is that the sun coming from there shines completely on both sides of the rock. So all the icicle is illuminated against that cliff, and I never had any idea that would happen. So the potential here is fantastic.
So the that last piece, in the end, the sculpture would fall apart. Basically, nature would kind of take it back again. He would photograph things, and he'd have those photographs that could then be shown in an art gallery. Here's another example of a piece that's just really well balanced, kind of taking these sticks and combining them together and balancing them. It broke, I think, several times in the process of making it. Right? There's just a lot of effort that goes into this, and sometimes the effort that you put into a work can really lead to its success. Not everything is going to be very easy, but it's important to kind of go through the process. So go kind of from beginning to end on an artwork. Even if it fails along the way, you can pick it up again and try again. After you've had a chance to look through some of these clips, you're going to be kind of making an understanding of what we're looking for in the sculpture. On the planning sheet, this top section is the same thing that you just saw in Schoology. But when you get down to the next area here, there's a spot where there's boxes that you're going to be completing parts of it. Okay? So in this first one, we're just going to do some thinking about those different artists that were linked on the top part of your planning, but also on the Schoology page. And I'd like you to pick one or more of the artists that you find really interesting. Pick out some of their sculptures that you find online, 3 of them, put them right in here. Now think back to earlier in the trimester when we talked about the elements of art and the principles of design. So elements of art are kind of going to be how the principles of design are built. So for this exercise, I'm going to have you think about them and try to see if you can identify within that sculpture that you've chosen what type of principle of design really makes that sculpture interesting, and how do you actually see it in that sculpture. So you'll do that for 3 different nature sculptures. There's also a link right here to a review sheet that allows you to see the principles of design all listed out, plus their definitions, and the elements of art as well are on that same sheet. All right, next up, you're going to be deciding where you want to make your sculpture, whether it be at a local park, nature preserve, in a backyard, someplace that you have easy access to, that's safe, that it's okay to actually be in as well. So think about the amount of time that you'll be spending. The project, I'm asking that you spend at least 2 hours. You can take longer if you'd like to make your sculpture. Really, it depends on the idea that you're doing and how much that idea is going to take. While you're at that location, or you can even think about it because you may already know where you want to do your sculpture, I want you to list out the materials that you think would be useful to use. So look in that area, see what's actually there, and then start to think about how those materials could be put together. And that's where you kind of make the connection between listing them out, knowing what's there, and then sketching it out. So you can do a digital sketch like we've done in the past, or you can do it on paper, photograph it, and put it right in here. But you're going to be thinking about what arrangement you're going to make. How is it going to look in its end state? I do have some examples that I'll flip through here from fall 2020. So this was a little while ago. So some of the sculptures are going to be, displayed in different ways. Here we've got some material, pine needles, that were all kind of combined together. They stick together. They were kind of like interwoven in a way to make that work. And then these other lines were some different type of pine needles that were added in, and in the end, depending on how you view the sculpture, it could look like a flower. So it's representing something from nature. Here we've got some interwoven grasses and berries that were kind of combined together into a circle, kind of that egg shape that you saw from Andy Goldsworthy. It is okay to take some inspiration from Andy Goldsworthy or one of the other artists as you're making your work. Some of the sculptures, you may take time to find the materials that you want to use and find like the right value and color that you need. Some sculptures could have probably used a little bit more effort to try to become three-dimensional, right? This is a very flat sculpture. You're kind of just viewing it straight down and doesn't really stand out too much. So you could think about trying to push how three-dimensional your artwork is. You could even take the idea of balancing, physically balancing some materials to create the same kind of effect that Andy Goldsworthy did, where you're kind of worried that that sculpture might fall over in an instant. This was an interesting idea where the student had found these items, put them together into an arrangement, but then they stayed with their sculpture while the wind was taking it away, and they kind of documented the process of it falling apart. Here we've got kind of stacked sticks to create a triangular pyramid type form. There was one here. Okay, here's another one. If you think about Andy Goldsworthy and how he had kind of just had a sculpture and then he'd actually stick with it while it was being destroyed. A student had an idea of creating this sculpture where they had encased some nature within ice, and then they were kind of documenting the process as that the items within the ice were being revealed. In this case, flowers. You can try to represent something else, like an animal, out of the nature items that you see. This one was pretty cool. Lighting could have been a little bit better for this to be able to see it better, but just look at the size, even if that's the size of a pumpkin, how much time it would have taken to find all of those items that really go well together to create this sun type shape, almost like a mandala in a way too. So in the end, you're planning. Okay, you get that turned in first, and then we'll be kind of focusing on the making of the sculpture. It's okay to go back to the same location multiple times to complete the whole piece. You may not get it done in one sitting. That's okay. Use the time that we have provided during class, after we're done with our Zoom section, to actually go out into the space and work on that nature sculpture. Make it its best. Okay? So again, on Schoology, you're going to find the information about the sculpture, the planning, and the submission spot for turning that sculpture in. Right? Have a great time making the sculpture. I hope you enjoy it.